Dear students, today we are going to discuss new topic. We all know about Aristotle. So today we are going to discuss about Aristotle and the Poetics. Aristotle is a great founding figure in Western philosophy and literary theory. He was born in 384 BC at Stagira in North Greece, which was under rule of Macedonia. His father was a medical practitioner. At the age of 17, he went to Athens, where he became disciple of great philosopher Plato. He stayed there till the death of Plato. Thereafter, he went to Minor Asia and he learned biology 2 years. He founded the Poetics school in 355 BC and delivered number of lectures on diverse subjects. He became a tutor of Prince Alexander. He wrote number of books. About 400 books he wrote. The most popular books are dialogue, rhetoric, logic, educational ethics, physics, metaphysics, politics, and poetics. He died in 322 BC. When we consider Aristotle, Aristotle was really a scientific literary critic. His criticism is embodied in the Poetics. The Poetics is a short treatise of 26 chapters and 45 pages. It doesn't say much about comedy. It expresses on epic and renowned concept of catharsis. It contains Greek philosophy of theory of tragedy. The Poetics contains 26 chapters. First to fifth chapter contain introductory remark of poetry and its classification in different kinds, including tragedy and comedy. Imitation is said to be common basic principle to all arts. Chapter 6 to 19th are devoted to tragedy. A definition is given and its formative elements are discussed. Chapter 20 to 21, 22 are devoted to discussion of poetic diction, style, vocabulary, etc. Chapter 23rd deals with narrative poetry and tragedy, whereas chapter 24th and 26th explain briefly about epic and compare with tragedy. Last chapter, that is 25th chapter, examines the objections of critics against poetry. The objections are also answered. Actually, Aristotle supposes poetry to begin into two kinds, either as heroic or satiric poetry. But out of satiric comes comedy, out of epic or heroic comes tragedy. Aristotle gave the definition of tragedy. His concern with tragedy, particularly in this book, he discussed each chapter containing different materials. The first chapter, imitation the common principles of arts of poetry. He discusses in second chapter the objections of imitation. The third chapter contains the manner of imitation. Fourth chapter, the origin and development of poetry. Fifth chapter, definition of ludicrous and a brief sketch of the rise of comedy. Sixth chapter, definition of tragedy. He expresses in seventh chapter the plot must be a whole. And in eighth chapter, he expresses about the plot must be a unity. Ninth chapter, he expresses about dramatic unity. 10th chapter, definition of simple and complex plot. Same way, 11th, reversal of the situation, recognition and tragic or disastrous incident defined and explained. 12th chapter, the quantitative parts of tragedy defined. 13th chapter, what constitutes tragic action. 14th chapter, the tragic emotions of pity and fear should spring out of the plot itself. 15th, the element of character in tragedy. 16th, recognition, its various kinds with examples. 17th, expresses practical rules for the tragic poet. 18th, again further rules for the tragic poet. 19th, thought or the intellectual element and diction in tragedy. 20th chapter discusses with diction or language in general. 21st chapter, poetic diction. 22nd chapter, how poetry combines elevation of language with perspicuity. 23rd chapter, epic poetry. 24th chapter expresses about further points of agreement with tragedy. 25th chapter, against poetry and the principles on which they are to be answered. And last chapter, that is 26th chapter, a general estimate of the comparative worth of epic, poetry and tragedy. So these are the chapters. We know about Aristotle. We know about the introduction of Poetics. Today, we think about the real definition of tragedy, and he gave real definition of tragedy in the Poetics. Next class, we shall discuss about whole book chapter wise, and I think you must learn about tragedy when we discuss about poetics whole book. So next class we shall again continue this lecture. Thank you.